A recent study states that 93% of the smokable products in the market aren't hemp. They're marijuana. Hey, I'm Morgan Davis. I'm a business attorney based in Raleigh, North Carolina, focusing on cannabis and wellness. Let's talk about how to keep your business protected and thriving. Now, if anybody's been around for a while, you know I don't like using the word marijuana, but we're using it today because, as we all know, that's still the term that's used for cannabis above 0.3% Delta-9 THC by dry weight at the federal level and then various other state levels. A recent study by the National Institute of Standards and Technology surveyed 53 products from 5 commercial manufacturers in the market. And they're all smokable hemp products of various combinations of Delta-8, Delta-10, Delta-9, HHC, fill in the blank. The manufacturers and the products are not listed. What the study found is that 93% of those products were not, in fact, hemp by the federal definition of 0.3% Delta-9 THC or less by dry weight. They were over that amount, meaning they were marijuana by the federal definition. This study is a great illustration of why compliance matters. It's a great illustration of the issues that businesses in this space deal with all the time and should tackle on their own and make up their own standards and hold themselves to those standards. Why? Well, because currently, in most places, the standards don't exist. And if 93% of the market isn't what it says it is, that's a huge problem. What does that mean? Ultimately, it means consumers aren't going to be able to trust this market. You're going to start tipping off law enforcement as to the issues, which we're already seeing happen, which causes regulators to then feel as though they need to take up this huge issue and regulate. And as we've seen, the education of regulators about this industry and about these products and the science behind it and the wellness behind it and the reason that we're all in this, that isn't there for the regulators. And so unless you have a seat at the table to say to them, these are the laws that we want, what happens a lot of times is we see straight up bans, or we see very, very low milligram caps, or we see regulations that don't make sense. So instead, we took the study and said, this is a reason why we as an industry must regulate ourselves. The study talks about the fact that 90% of the samples analyzed by NIST were determined to have a total Delta-9 THC mass fraction above 0.3%. Most of the documentation that they looked at for these products online, so the certificates of analysis, the marketing associated with them, stated that they were legal, that they were at or under 0.3%. They give some credence to the fact that the poor agreement or the lack of continuity between what the study found and what was advertised could be due to factors such as differences in testing methods, in homogeneity, I dare everyone to say that, of samples that are basically, there's no continuity between the samples that are being tested. Batch to batch variability, storage conditions, and or the product labels and online documentation is simply false. So people are lying, okay? All of the above can be addressed by a business owner. 1, testing methods. Find and use and stick with a reliable testing facility. Don't just go with the cheapest one you can find. Don't just go with the one that everybody uses. ISO certified is preferred. Some people say that they should also test regulated cannabis products. Some say they shouldn't. It is a matter of fact that if they test and offer services to the regulated cannabis industry, they are held to a higher standard in most states. So it's a nice marker to say if they're working in the regulated cannabis space, they are a higher standard lab. And then Ask other people in your industry. Find the best product out there that you can, that you know is reliable, that is a good product, and see who they're using to test with. Learn how to create homogeneous samples. This takes expertise. Don't just assume you can do it. Figure out how to hire the right people so that your batches and your sampling is done in a way, it doesn't have to be, at this moment, it doesn't have to be GMP certified methods, but that is a growing trend. So it's good to consider now whether or not it makes sense for your business to go ahead and adopt those kinds of standards. I would argue that it is. Storage conditions. This is going to depend on the type of product you're creating, if it's a smokable product though, which is most of what these are, then we've talked about the fact that they need to be kept in temperature controlled environments, especially if we're talking about flower, but even if we're talking about vape products. Light exposure needs to be limited, and time is a factor in the degradation of these products. But I would say the same thing if you're selling edible products. If you store your edibles with, let's say you're doing your own fulfillment or you've contracted out your fulfillment, doesn't matter. You need to make sure that your products are kept in a space so that they maintain that good product quality that you want. If your edibles go all sweaty and gross after 6 months of sitting in a fulfillment center, you don't want to sell that in the market. You don't want that out there. Same thing goes for your vapes and your bud. If it goes hot, or it suddenly starts to degrade and it's now made up of something different than when you tested it, that's a problem. So you need to invest in the storage conditions that are specific to the needs of your product. Update your online documentation regularly. Don't set it and forget it when it comes to your COAs. Don't set it and forget it when it comes to your marketing and your product labeling and what you're putting out into the world. It's easy as a business owner to get caught up, especially when you're a small team or a really, limited team, to do what you think you need to do and then get caught up in sales and caught up in the everyday work of your business and forget about the fact that what you put into the world matters and you're going to be held accountable, whether it's by a regulating body or a random sampling by somebody like NIST or by a consumer who says, hey, your product says one thing, I had it independently tested, it comes out as another thing. Somebody's going to hold you accountable, so you should hold yourself accountable first. It's about understanding the problems associated with your production and getting ahead of them. If you want help, give us a call today. We would love to help you set your own standards and figure out how to apply them in your business.